terms of what should you have on your study sheet when it comes to these terms, I would say don't copy all of these terms down, okay? There's just too much. I think the main focus right now is for you to know or have heard of the terms before. I will let me do this. I'll go back and I'll put a star next to the ones that I think are really important, okay? So if we go back to investments, I would definitely say that you need to be familiar. So I'm putting stars on the ones that I think, you know, if you have space, I would say being familiar with this concept right here, this whole line, okay, that the future value A is always the principal, your money, plus any interest that you may have earned, okay? I also think that the rate of return, that is also a very important concept to have, and I would say this box, which I already highlighted, is worth putting on your study sheet. So that's the second star. If you go back to the next page, I think I would just say, and you got to be creative on how you're going to put this down, but knowing that high risk has potential higher returns, but there's also a great possibility of a loss at the same time. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? And knowing that low-risk investments offer lower returns, okay? In general, right, a GIC is considered low risk, and stock market is one of the highest risks that we can come up with. So stock is high, so if you want to go stock market, and GIC is usually considered a very low risk investment. So just be familiar with that, okay? Stock market, GIC, it's kind of like polar opposites. You just need to know that a portfolio is a collection of investments. I would say that is important because the word portfolio is actually quite popular. I will say that again, the GIC, just tell yourself what it means and that it's very safe, low risk, but you get low returns and you're locked in. So that is also something that I would say is important. And just be creative on how you're going to put this together. You can double up information if you are creative enough, okay? Let's keep going. So those are the stars I would definitely say are important. Go to page 6. We're going to keep going. So I don't need you to have market-based investments, dividends, capital gains. I don't need you to have that on your study sheet necessarily. Appreciation, depreciation, that concept is important. Appreciation is when something gains in value. Depreciation, something loses value. Okay. And I will just say this formula is going to come back over and over. So the future value, or like what the value is expected to be of something, is going to be the principal, what you start with, times 1 plus the rate at which it increases or decreases to the power of time. I will ask you to add a negative here, plus or minus. I will rewrite that. How's that? I'll do one better than that. I'll say this formula is probably better to put down this way. Future value is equal to the present value times 1 plus or minus the rate at which it changes divided by 100 to the power of time in years. Okay? This is probably a better formula to have, and we're going to come back to this later. So if it's a little overwhelming right now, don't worry about it too much. But that one is definitely something I would say is important to have. Okay? So let's say you buy a car and the car is worth $50,000 and it loses 10% every year. If it says loses or depreciates, what would you go? Would you go 1 plus the rate or 1 minus? Minus, right? So then you would subtract if it's a depreciation. If it's real estate, houses for the most part, they go up in value, right? So you would go 1 plus the rate. And don't be too worried. I will show you how to do this when we get there, okay? Registered plans. There are two big registered plans that I want you to be familiar with. Our RSP is Registered Retirement Savings Plan. And obviously it goes towards retirement, okay? Then there's something called the RESP. It's a Registered Education Savings Plan, which I can imagine that, yeah. Why was the rate divided by 100? Because it's going to be a percentage. So if it's 20%, I want you to divide it by 100. Yeah. I will say the rate is always as a percent. That's why I just go ahead and divide it by 100. Yeah. That's a good question. Does anybody know if they have an RESP? If your parents have an RESP, you have? Yeah? Yeah. They may have not told you about it, but as soon as my kids were born, I opened an RESP that day. And I just put money in there. And the government matches what you put in there to a certain degree, and it just grows. So, right, from 0 till 17 or 18, as soon as you go to university, you can withdraw that for your kids. So that's actually a pretty good plan. It's just another way of saving for the future, right? The retirement is saving for retirement. Education, you're saving for education. Right? So keep going. I give you a little bit of a graph here where you compare on the y-axis, we compare how much interest you would gain or how much you would get back in return. And we compare it to the level of risk on the x-axis. Okay? So as this line goes up, your return goes up and so does the risk. Okay? So the higher up this line you go, if you're right at this very end here, you are at a very high risk and a very potential high return. Okay? So I just want you to understand that if you could rank them, stock market would be at the highest risk but potential for highest return, and cash would be kind of considered low risk but you get like no return, right? Like if you just have cash under your pillow, you're not going to get anything in return, right? So, but you, at least it's with you, you have it. You don't have to worry about waking up the next day and it's gone, unless your siblings know about it. Don't tell them, right? Anyways, and then GIC is a little bit more return, right? But also a little bit higher risk. And so that's something I want you to be familiar with. Don't copy that graph down on your study sheet. Not a good idea, okay? Now, let's go to, now we're going to do some math today already, okay? We're going to talk about earning simple interest. Earning simple interest, that's the first part that we're getting into. And I like to use a different color to contrast. We know that right now that might not mean much to you, but there's no compounding periods here. That's how we know we're in simple interest mode. Okay? The amount of interest an investment earns based only on the principal. If we graph the amount of simple interest earned as a function of time, it produces a linear function. The y-intercept is the principal, and the slope is the interest earned. When using a simple interest formula, time must always be expressed in years. I would like to highlight that. Time must always be expressed in years. So that's why I'm going to give you a quick warm-up for this part. If given months or days, you must convert to years. Okay? Use a fraction as a way of keeping all decimals until the final answer. So if you have 420 days, we're going to turn that into 420 divided by the number of days in a year. Now you can slap on the year next to that time. It's kind of weird to talk about it that way, but if you were to divide this, you would get a decimal, and that would be years. Okay? 30 months, instead of 30 months, I want you to think of 30 divided by the number of months in a year. And then you write it like that. 36 weeks. How many weeks in a year? 50 something? 52, yeah, 52. So that's something that if you need to, there's 1 year has 365 days, 12 months, 52 weeks. I don't know if you need to add that, right? But anyways, that's there for you. And here's the simple interest formula. This formula, this box, I would most definitely say add that to your study sheet. And the easiest way to remember is I party, right? I equals PRT. If you use this formula as is, and you know every single component on the right side of that equation, you're going to figure out how much interest you will have earned, okay, in an investment, or how much you will have paid if it's a loan. P is the principal, is the original initial amount. R is the rate of interest. You need to turn it as a decimal. T is the time in years. Okay? But always remember, I'll ask you to add this to your notes here. I'm just going to quickly go to that page in my... I will always tell you that, remember that, recall that the future value is always equal to principal plus the interest that you've earned. Therefore, based on this logic, if you ever want to know how much interest you've earned, you just go future value subtract P. And I will rephrase this. Interest is equal to future value minus principal. I've deducted it from this principal right here. So under this section right here, where it says interest earned, I want you to write down or I equals A minus P. Okay, that is not in the original, but I want you to add that. Again, I'm telling you this again. Recall that future value is principal plus interest. So this is true, just like I told you there. So we can actually come up with a new formula. A is equal to P times 1 plus rate times time. And you just use it like that. Use this when only true, sorry, when two variables in I equals PRT are unknown. This is a big note here. And I'll let you copy that before I keep yapping, right? I'll repeat this one more time, okay? So you're on your study sheet, I would recommend you have a simple interest section, okay? A little title, you say simple interest. I want you to have this formula on there, okay? The I equals PRT. Tell yourselves what each letter means in that formula. You're also under simple interest are going to have this formula right here. Right, my pencil is over, so I'm going to box that in and highlight it because this is also important. And now I just want to reiterate, what is A for us in this unit? What does A represent for us? The future value, which is basically the amount of money we're expecting to have in the future. So whenever you're calculating A, they're asking for the value in the future. Okay. If you use this formula right here, where my pencil is at the top here, this one only calculates how much interest you will have earned. Okay. So if you want to know how much you have in the future, and you calculate the interest, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to add the principal and the interest together. Okay. So you're like, what's up with this formula and that? Well, why do they look different? They would essentially do the same thing. Okay. But I would say if you just have these two, you will be fine. So have those two on your study sheet and under simple interest, and we'll take care of the rest. Maybe, if you don't mind, I would also, I'm going to box this one in here because it relates these two. The principle is still there. Got it? Keep going. We're going to use them in a bit, and I think they're going to make a bit more sense. Here is the rate of return one more time. And you already have this. I already asked you to highlight this and add. There are two versions of it. Okay, so I will say that the rate of return expressed as a percentage, I would say it doesn't hurt to have both of these on your study sheet. I'm just going to say this though. This is not exclusive. This is not exclusive to simple interest. This is true for any investment. So don't have this necessarily under simple interest. This is true for all, okay? Always true. So let's use this. I'm going to go to the next page. I should maybe talk about rate of return one last time. What's up with this? Why is rate of return so important? It's the rate of return that's going to indicate to us which investment did better overall. Because sometimes you have different interest rates, you've got different times for the investments. This is going to tell us how much did we get back at the end of the day. Okay, so let's go to 10. And let's do some calculations. Jen invests $2,500 in a GIC. Will GIC throw you off from now on? It shouldn't throw you off, right? The GIC is just some sort of investment, right? It's a savings. Okay. At 2.5%, simple interest. There's that. That's how you know you're in simple interest territory, because it's going to change later on. We're going to have compound interest and simple interest. We are in simple interest territory. For 10 years, calculate the interest earned at maturity. And remember, I'm going to do this on the side. You have I equals PRT, and you have A is equal to P1 plus RT, as well as A is equal to P plus I. Those are the formulas you have under simple interest. I always want you to start with that if you can, with this one right here. So I go I, P, R, T. I do an inventory first before I use the formula. And I see what I have. Do I know my time? It's 10 years. It's in years and everything, so it's perfect. So I'm going to put 10 years in there. Do I know the interest rate? It's 2.5%. I cannot have that. You need to divide that by 100. So you're going to get 0.025. Do I know the principal? This is your principal. What you're investing, it's the original amount. $2,500, which leaves you with interest, how much interest you've earned. It's a question mark, and the question itself wants to know what it is anyways, what calculate the interest. So that's your question mark. So you can use this formula now. You can use this one. I equals PRT. So we're going to go 2,500 times the interest rate times 10. These could be, especially the time could be it could be a fraction, right? But don't worry about it. And I want you to use those calculators that I gave you today. And I know that some of you haven't used it before, so I'm just going to ask you to just press the on button for now. Just turn this on and press the clear button. Clear is right here under those 4 arrows to clear your screen. Okay? If you by mistake press any button that gets you off the home screen. So let's say you press, we'll press Zoom. Okay, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened? What did I just do? You go second mode, you quit that screen, you're back on your home screen. Okay, so that's how you deal with it. I'm going to press clear, so my screen is completely clear, and I'm just going to go 2,500 times 0.025 times 10, and you hit enter. Enter is our equal button on this calculator. There it is, 625. I'm going to encourage you to go 0.00 because there are instances where you must have 2 decimals. So I'm just going to say write down 0.00. It doesn't hurt. And that is your final answer for this question. They just wanted to know how much interest you've earned. Interest earned. show two different ways to calculate the future value of the investment at maturity. Calculate the future value. What is the future value for us? What letter do we give it? A. Yeah. No, not that A. This A, right? A. Anyways, so one way could be this. A is equal to P plus I. Or we can use A is equal to P1 plus RT. Which one they want to use? Both work. That's the beauty of this. Both work. What is P for us? 2,500. What is I for us? I already found out that it's 625, correct? So you just go add them up. If you want to use your fancy schmancy calculator, right? 2,500 plus 625. Hit enter. And I'm going to go 0.00. That is how much you have. That is the future value expected. That's how much money you would have. You started with $2,500, guys. You earned $625 interest, so this is how much you will have in the future. Or, let's split this up. I would not recommend doing it this way. I just want to show you that they both do the same thing. P is 2,500. We go 1 plus, my rate is 0.025, and I will multiply that by 10. How many brackets do you have going on there, right? I know. I'm going to clean this up a bit. The calculator is pretty good at BEDMAS, but I'm going to multiply 0.025 times 10, because you got to multiply first. Then add 1 to it. I just go plus 1. That gives me 1.25. I'll take the 1.25 and I'll multiply that by 2,500. And voila, you get the same answer. See, they both do the same thing, so whatever works for you. Would I use this one in the future, guys? I would not use this one if I didn't have to. I'm just showing you that they do the same thing. Hold it, Mr. Erickson. When do you use this one? When do you absolutely have to use that one? I'm telling you already. Remember the note I gave you? If you only know two variables in I equals PRT, if only two of them are known, you're stuck. Like, you have to use this formula right here. Okay? Other than that, I use the I equals PRT. Okay. State the rate of return of the investment. Rate of return is, I'm just going to do that real quick, future value minus principal divided by principal, and I multiply this whole thing by 100. That's basically from the previous page, okay? So I'm going to go rate of return. What is my future value in this case? You pick, right? 3125 minus the principal, which we've already established is 2,500. You divide that by the principal, and you multiply that by 100. When you subtract these two, what do you get? I think you wouldn't be surprised, right? When you subtract these two, you get 625, right? 625. You divide that by 2,500 and you multiply that by 100. Sorry about it being so cramped. I'm not too proud of that one. So 625 divided by 2,500 times, I'm going to do that first, sorry, times 100. That's 25 what? When you multiply anything by 100%. That's the rate of return. Folks, what is this? What is that number here again, the 625? What did we call that number? Interest. So that's what you've earned, right? You've earned, and you compare it to what you've put in, and it ends up being 25%. You're like, cool, got it, circle it. Can we move on? What you've just established here is that for every $100 you've put in, you got back $25, okay? So you're kind of figuring out, so let's say you have another investment somewhere else and you get a rate of return of 40%. You're like, whoa, that's doing better than this one, right? For every $100 I put in, I get 40 back. So keep that in mind. D. I'm going to let you work today yet, so just bear with me here. D, if she wanted $3,500 after 500 weeks, what interest rate would she need? So I'm putting a spin to this. Remember, we're in simple interest territory. I equals PRT. Do this. Do the inventory. Maybe you need to tell yourself that on the study sheet. Do the inventory. I equals PRT. Do we have our time? Yes. It's 500 weeks, right? I can't have that. I can't have 500 because if you just leave it 500, you're telling me 500 years. Right now, you're telling me 500 years. We're going to go divide it by 52. Yes. So now I have that in years. The rate, it's asking for it. What is the interest rate? So I put a question mark on it. I don't know what it is. Principal, it's still $2,500. Interest. Do we know how much interest? How much interest, if you have 2,500 and you get to 3,500, how much interest have you earned? 1,000. So I'm going to go 3,500 minus 2,500. You've earned $1,000 in interest, if that's what you want. Copy this down and then I'll show you what I mean. Like why did I do this? I'll show you on, I asked you to add that to your formula, right? Let's go over to that formula real quick. This is what I've used in this case. To figure out the interest, sometimes you just have to use the information they gave you, and then you can find out what I is, okay? You're not solving for it in a sense. Ultimately, we're solving for the interest rate. So we're going to use I equals PRT to get us started. Interest is $1,000. Principal is $2,500. Rate is unknown, so I'm just going to leave it as R. Time is 500 divided by 52. And every teacher does it a little differently, I know that. But what I will do is on this side, I will multiply the two numbers together that are there, because it's all multiplying. Let's clean it up. So what I'll do is this. I will go 2,500 times, I use brackets, watch. Bracket 500 divided by 52. It's a bit blurry, right? Are you okay there? And I will hit enter and get that. Okay? So watch what I'm going to do here, especially if you're new to applied. I will say 24 038.46, and we go dot, 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 R. R is still hanging in there, right? And what will I do to both sides to isolate R? It's multiplying, so I will divide by 24,038.46 dot, dot, dot. 24,038.46 dot, dot, dot. You effectively get to cancel out here. I will continue my work here. So I'll say R is on the right side. And I know some of you are new to this calculator. I'll give you a little bit of help on this later. But what I do is I type in 1,000 and I go divide it by. You can go up and copy that one. You can highlight it using your arrows. Hit enter to paste it in there. And it's 1,000 divided by your previous answer. And you get 0.0416. Technically, yeah. You go arrow up and highlight whatever you want to copy, hit enter. It will paste it. Okay, technically, this is okay. You can leave it like that. But if you multiply that by 100, then rate is 4.16%. So either one is fine, okay? As long as if you multiply by 100, make sure you have a percent symbol next to it, that's all. And I will say this, read the question. If the province says as a percent, you must multiply by 100, okay? So there's no choice there. Yeah, as long as it's mathematically sound. I was just asked the question, is it okay if I show my work differently? Absolutely. Some of you might have a different way, you do it in more steps. That's fine with me. One more and then I'll let you work. Let me just pause this here because maybe you feel a little. One more. If she wanted $2,800 after 890 days at this interest rate, how much would she have had to initially invest? How much? I want you to tell me what letter we're solving for if you read this. What letter? P. Yeah? Principal? They're asking for, it's like, what is P? What is P? Let's do our inventory. This is all like still part of Jen's investment, right? Time, do we have time? Yes, 890 days, but we can't leave it like that, so we need to put it over 365. Now we can say years, okay? The rate, we know what it is. We're going to turn that into a decimal. Do we know the principal? We don't, right? It's asking us what will we need to put in to get, so we don't know this. Is there a way to find out how much interest we will have earned? I have to clarify this. Let me see here if I can I get rid of, can I make this a separate question? I think I can make this a separate question, so it has nothing to do with Jen. Okay, can we do that? Because I think otherwise you're like 2,500. That was my principal. No, this is like a different scenario. So let's get rid of the E and just say new. New question. Okay. So let's forget about Jen. Sorry, Jen. We don't know anything about you anymore. If she wanted, what is this? What is this here? What letter would you give this? A, right? If she wanted. Do we have room for A in here? No. is there a way to still get I somehow if you don't have principal? You're actually stuck, right? Because you don't have the principal. You have A. If you have the principal, you could subtract these two to get I, but you're stuck here. So I'm going to go question mark, question mark. What would you use instead? What do you have to call now? You got to call your other formula, right? Only two variables known. Okay? Use A is equal to P 1 plus RT. Do we know what A is? Future value. We know that. That's 2800, right? 2817. We don't know what the principal is. 1 plus the rate we do know. You just have to be careful here when you insert. Right? Times time, which is 890. You got to be kidding me. This is ugly, right? Don't fear. This is going to clean up just nicely. Watch. Let's figure out this mess here. It's okay to actually type it in one shot, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go 890 divided by 365, right? And then I'm going to multiply that by 0.0425, and then I'm going to add 1 to it. So that gives me 1.1036, and I'm just going to go dot, 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 because I'm going to use all decimals. You should try this. Like you should be able to get this. Okay? And now I divide both sides by 1.103. You get to cancel it here. And now you need a dollar sign. For your final answer, you do need a dollar sign. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 2817 divided by my previous answer. I just copy pasted. It's 2537.24. So you would have had to invest that much money for it to grow, right, to the 2,800 in 890 days. I'm going to get rid of the rate of return here. I think you get it already, so let's not worry about it. It's going to get too busy here. I'm guilty of asking too many questions. Question, and then I'm going to let you practice. I think you need some practice time. I know I've been bombarding you. How much interest did we earn in this situation? How could we figure it out? How much interest? I subtract A and P, right? I can subtract this and this, and then I get my interest. Okay, so I'll just say interest earned. And that is 262.93. Mr. Darson, I'm just curious. You figured out P, correct? Yes, I did. Could I have just inserted P in here and then used I equals PRT to figure out the interest? Yes. It's all connected. Everything is connected here, okay? You just have to be careful how you use it and how you substitute in. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to just say starting in class, pages 11 to, I believe, 15. I would say this, you will come across some interesting scenarios, maybe a table or something. Try to use what you already know to still answer the question, even if it doesn't look very familiar to you. But I will circulate and I will post the answer key so you can follow along, okay? Thank you.